Hi guys, and welcome back to Sustainsessions. This is episode 3, and today we're looking to talk about learn yourself and be yourself. Just a brief recap as to why I'm doing these. So really I'm just trying to help and share some of my insights and potential wisdom, nuggets of wisdom that I've learned from my 7 years of becoming a recording artist. First released my first EP in 2013, actually 28th of June, which is this Sunday, which is also my birthday. And coincidentally, I'm releasing another project called Breakthrough Sessions 2 on that date. And so I'm kind of celebrating my 7 years by sharing and passing on the knowledge that I feel like I've learned in this time. And just hoping to share, really. So today's subject is just learn yourself and be yourself. And there's a reason that I'm picking that, because I just believe that you have to be yourself. Like in anything that you want to do, individuality is very important. You know, I don't think that people really buy into clones. Even if things start off as clones and really good clones, then they always evolve into their own unique thing for a reason, so that people can appreciate that individual person. And I think if you want to have sort of longevity in music, I think it's important to be yourself. And the longevity I speak about, for me, isn't determined on profitability, like in terms of music and what I do at the moment, which might not make me an authority. I don't really make a lot of money from music. I give that preface there when I'm giving my advice. But I have been able to release music for 7 years, and that in itself to me is an achievement. And the ability to continue to release music, I feel like I've learned some stuff over that time. That's my get out of jail free card. So firstly, uniqueness, I feel like is definitely a gift. It really is a gift. There's signs in nature of that. I mean, you have like a unique set of fingerprints, for example, and I mean, even in the race to be born, you know, the reproductive process, there is sperm that has to be selected and stands out from everyone else, and that's the one that has to race ahead, and that's ultimately what became you know. So there is that uniqueness that's involved in every single one of us, and I believe God has called each one of us to be unique. Everyone brings something to the table, and so what I'm going to try to do is just encourage you to embrace that journey. I think for me, what I would start off by saying is key thing in learning yourself is learning your creative processes. So what sparks your creativity? What really makes you want to write a song if you're a songwriter? What makes you really want to produce if you're a producer? What depletes your creativity? What are the things that make you feel like, I don't want to do this today. Like, this has just sapped me out of it. And also what I'd say is learn how to push yourself. I think it's very important to be able to push yourself in this space as a recording artist. I think it's very important to be able to not make excuses as to why you can't do something, but just make a plan and execute the plan. So if you say you're going to be in the studio on a certain day, by all means be in the studio that certain day. Be on time when you're going to do that. If you've got your own studio, then be consistent and make sure you actually complete a project. Your own home studio actually can be, it can be a blessing. I don't want to say a blessing and a curse, but it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, really, when you look at things. Because it just can be a double-edged sword, because at the same time you always have access to do your music, but sometimes that means you're less motivated. You always think, I could do it another day, whereas when you pay for studio time and you're going somewhere, that can make you more dedicated, you know, and you've got set time frames, you're spending money, you're going to value kind of what you're doing a little bit more. So I don't advocate for everyone to get a home studio. It's not the way to go for everyone. Did kind of touch on it in the previous video, but as I said, being sustainable is different to different people. Your sustainability might be finding someone that partners with you, offers reduced rates, and you're more productive in that space. So I'd say for me, one of the keys I've learned is learn when you're not in a musical season. Now, this is a bit of a controversial one because we're supposed to bear fruit in and out of season, if I'm talking about from a Christian perspective. And I just think anyway, as an artist, you should just, being quote unquote a professional artist, which I'm not, I'm a semi-professional artist, but I do like to incorporate professional mind states into the things that I do. But yeah, being a professional means that you can do the job come rain or shine or whatever. What's slightly different, if you're a gospel artist or you're just a sensitive creative, is sometimes there will be seasons in life where you will not want to create music, or you cannot create music due to circumstance. And I think for me, one of the key things is learning how to find joy even when you're not putting music out, and don't allow music to become an idol. So you have to find other hobbies and other things that give you and bring you joy. Music could not be the sole source of your joy, because when music, it's just like anything in life. If you look at the journey of anything, I like to read a lot of stories about successes and biographies, and you'll always see everybody's journey is always up and down. Nobody's journey, even if it's all the way up, at some point they're going to have some downs. And typically in the secular music industry, what happens is people burn out, in gospel industry too, but especially I feel like if your motive is just purely on the music, once that high goes, people try to get highs in other places. So, and I think it's a trap that you can fall into as a gospel artist as well. So I would just encourage you to try and find your joy in other stuff outside of music. Find other hobbies, find other things that you are good at. Some people, for me, a long time, all I thought is that I was good at music and that was it, and music was my everything. And that's cool for a while, but there's things that happen in life. Like for me, when I got married, to be honest, actually, before we even made our first anniversary, I released my first EP, which was the Home EP. And when we did that, but then after that, we started to try for a baby. Had a baby with various different circumstances that happened that meant I wasn't really motivated to do music. It wasn't that I wasn't creatively motivated, but space, time, energy, effort, I didn't really have it at that particular time to do it. Although saying that, I did put out an EP in 2014 as well. Should I talk about that? Yeah, I probably should. So in terms of the EP 2014, that was the live EP that I released, and to be honest, I loved the project per se, but I didn't enjoy how it turned out. I think I rushed the project, and it was my inexperience that allowed me to put it out. Now when I listen to some of the things that I left in the project, because I ultimately edited it, I just wanted to push it out, and I pushed it out a bit too fast, and I didn't really appreciate sonically what I was doing. And so that EP is probably like my worst project. It's my best in certain other ways, but if you listen to it, it's just really messy. And I do want to actually fix that at some point. So I think you have to learn yourself in that way as well. And I think during the mixing process, I knew these things. I kind of knew these things. I was like, this doesn't sound as great as when I first heard it. And no issue with the mixing. It wasn't the mixing that was the problem. It was that I didn't edit certain things and I wasn't clear about the sound I wanted. And I think the organic sound that came out of whoever did the in-house mix when it was recorded live did a great job. I should have just gone with that. But inexperience just says you have to do the tick box exercises, and that's where you can fall down. So I'd just say learn yourself in terms of learn your taste, what you like and what you don't like, and follow it to a T. So I've got a lot of notes I'm just trying to keep up with. So yeah, for me, I would say in terms of learning about yourself, one of the key things I learned about myself, which may also apply to many others, is that your creativity is not just restricted to music. That was a key opening point for me. So when I say learn yourself and learn other hobbies and other things, I learned that creativity is creativity. As a creative, you're given creativity, and creativity, just because music is the one you've discovered, that might not be the be all and end all of your creativity. Like for me at the moment, photography, videography, I do designs for my own artwork as well, and video editing. And these things, you notice when you start to do them, you put creative spins on things, you do creative things. There's so many ways to be creative without doing music. So I would just encourage you to find some other stuff that you're creative in. And so even when music may feel dry, you can have other avenues to let out your creativity. Because if you don't, it can end up in a lot of frustration and a lot of challenging feelings that you feel inside that you just don't really gel with. You don't really know how to manage those emotions, and us as creative people, sometimes we can be emotional. So I think it's important, especially if you're in a walk with the Lord, to learn how to harness your creativity in creative ways, have a good creative outlet other than music. I'm just going to grab this, it's too far away. I would say learn your non-negotiables is what I would say. Learn the things you're not willing to compromise on, and learn to say no. Learn that some things are okay to say no to. Have your things that you could apply to men or women. Learn that if I ever get asked to show too much skin or to do something that I'm not comfortable with, I have to learn where my limits are and things that I'm willing to say no on. You can't wait till you're in the room, because opportunities and things like that will entice you to bend your morals, should I say. And so what I would encourage you to do is, that's why I'm saying that, as much as you can love music and everything else like that, just know the territory comes with some stuff, and you have to be clear about who you are and what you're willing to do in order to have a level of sustainability, or to finish the same way you intended to start. If you wanted to start and you wanted to be like a pure gospel singer, and then you turn into, I'm not going to use any cliches because it's going to sound judgmental, but you turn into something else, there'll be a journey of compromise that will lead to that point. So you have to decide and make the decision that actually, you know what, I'm just going to do what I need to do, and decide where your lines are, really. So me, I would say personally, one of the best things I've learned about myself, and what I would encourage other people to learn and make as a rule, is to be honest, to be clear, and to be integral in your dealings with people. This is a huge one. Huge one. Honesty, clarity, integrity. Very, very important things to have, because your name, the music industry isn't that big. I can say that as someone who's worked on the corporate side as well as the artist side. You always know someone that knows someone that knows someone. And when you cause a stink and a fuss, excuse me, and I don't mean stink and fuss in terms of just disagreeing about something, there's a way in which you can do certain things. When you make a stink and a fuss, it can cause your name to be tarnished, and you don't know who the next gatekeeper is that you're going to meet that's connected to someone who has an opinion about you. So try to keep those things in mind when you're operating with people. As I said, be kind to people. Be kind to people where they are on their journey. Sometimes you might not like someone's sound. You might not like what someone's doing. Always make it a priority to be an encourager, not to be fake. There's a difference between being fake and being an encourager. You can still encourage people without lying to them. And so just encourage people, because you don't know, as I said, today's quote unquote reject might become tomorrow's king. And the key thing to remember in this industry, which is applicable across all of it, you're not greater than anybody. Everybody has their good and their bad days. People have their ups and their downs, and treat people the way you'd want to be treated. This is a huge one for I think a lot of artists, is learning how to manage your ego. You have to learn how to manage the part of you that says, do people not know who I am? Even though you've done nothing. pride is a strange thing. Egos are a strange thing. It doesn't necessarily mean because you haven't done anything that you may not have pride and may not have an ego. Some people just get a little bit of a taste of success and they just go off. It's like a drug for them. And so, a lot of that comes back to identity. It comes back to rooting. It comes back to validation. If music is your validation, that is going to be a problem for you when you begin to get into other doors and more temptation comes along. Because if it's your validation, you'll do anything to make it validate you, and that's a scary place to be. You will be yielded to music and not yielded to what you're meant to be doing with music. Music ultimately is a tool. That's what I would say. Music is a tool. It's a great tool. It's a tool I'm in love with. It's a tool that I've given a lot of my life to, but it is a tool, and it's misused a lot, and it's used for all different purposes, and it is also something that's intoxicating, and it's intoxicating not only for the people doing it but for the people that are consuming it. So you just have to be very careful, like with your ego. Check your ego. You know, sometimes you might go somewhere, there's two people there to sing in front of. Is that the time to put your diva on? Because especially as a gospel artist, God's always watching the way that you serve. And so please try to check egos at the door. I love humble people. I love working with people who have humility. And I'm not going to say I'm the most humble person. I just like to try to be as humble as possible with what I do. And if I'm not being humble, a lot of times I feel like God will check me on it, and I have to repent of it before Him, you know. Yeah, so I'm gonna say, like, give people room to grow, like in your team. Correct people and help them, but don't beat people and don't manipulate them. So as an artist, at times I've seen people working with their teams and they can just be like mean, man, and just be like manipulative with their team and try and be manipulative with you. Like, manipulation's not good. You're falling into the realm of witchcraft, and that's if you're doing gospel music, that's not what we're here to do. So yeah, just try and stay away from that. Learn, I would say, what puts you off in partnerships as well. I think I touched on this point in a previous video, but it's part of learning yourself. Like learning, like as I said, for me personally, like rudeness. I don't like rudeness. I don't like arrogance. I don't really like too much ego and pride. Also kind of don't like too much of like a money hungry attitude, because that's just not who I am, and it's not who I am as an artist or as a person. So those things would put me off in terms of a partnership. And so I think it's important to, as I said, like timekeeping might be your thing, you know. Yeah, like making sure that someone washes their hands before they touch your equipment. I don't know, man. It could be anything. Just really try to learn yourself and know what you can deal with and what you can't do with. It kind of goes back to knowing your boundaries, knowing who you are as a person. Yeah, do not enter into partnerships lightly. So draw parameters around them. Partnerships are great, but you have to know that people shouldn't really have unlimited access to each other. There has to be some level of parameters involved in there, just to protect both parties. And I mean that with all love. Like, it's not, you know, just build slowly and build sustainably. I touched on it in another part. Anyway, moving on. So the things I think you need to do is to commit to a lifelong journey. I've spoke about this before briefly. As an artist, it takes 10,000 hours supposedly to master your gift. When you do commit to a long-term journey as an artist, it helps you to hold on during tough times. You know, when I was talking about the ups and the downs that happen, and if you know you're growing and commit to a long-term objective, it can help you to put short-term disappointments, failures, frustrations into context, which is very important, to put those things into context. I'd say learn how to navigate the seasons of artistry. Again, it goes back to the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs. This is quite a good one. Be prepared to not have support. So the scripture reference I'll use is Zechariah 4:10. This is in the New Living Translation. It says, "Do not despise the small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin, to see the plumb line in Zerubbabel's hand." This is one that's challenged me a lot. Sometimes you just feel like you don't have people supporting you. Now, a lot of artists, when they get to that point, they just start to lose it. When they feel like they're not getting support, they just lose it. They start to develop an attitude. That's how you get the chip on your shoulder. For me, I choose to just view it that that's just the route I'm on. That's just the journey I'm on. And even, and also, as I said, one of my weaknesses, I think, is marketing. So that in itself might stop people from connecting with me, or for whatever reason, or supporting what I do. But as I said, I'm 7 years in. I still feel like I'm relatively small, like definitely within the space. But you just have to learn how to deal with that, and just be prepared to handle it. If people don't support it, are you still going to do it anyway? The point I went back to before: if there's one person there in the audience, are you going to sing? So that brings me on to my next point, which is to focus on impact and not numbers. It's not about a numbers game. The good cop-out we have as gospel artists is it's for the kingdom. And it's not for, doesn't matter about the amount of people. These are the sentiments. A lot of people don't feel that way. I've had to learn how to feel that way. Initially, I always wanted it to be about numbers, and of course you'd like your music to reach as far as it can, but if it's not, sometimes there's reasons behind that. Sometimes there's things in you God needs to deal with, or sometimes God is just preparing you, or sometimes there's things ahead that you're not aware of, and God's timing is perfect, and that's just what it is. Or sometimes you're just never called to that space. You're never called to be that big. You have to be okay with that. Do not give up. So the reason I say sustain sessions, 7 years in, don't give up, because you can't win what you are not in. Sounds like a funny rhyme, but it's 100% true. You cannot win what you are not in. If you're not in the race, you can't win it. You've got no way to win it. I've got so much more to do. I'm probably gonna have to do a part 2 to this potentially. I would say, already said this, don't let music be your only form of peace or allow it to become an idol. I've already talked on that. Guard your heart from disappointment. This is a very, very important one. There are times in music you may be disappointed. You may be disappointed that some people didn't support what you did. A musician didn't gel with what you were doing. A musician didn't like what you were doing. Your contemporaries don't respect you, don't appreciate you. You have to learn how to guard your heart from those disappointments. The reality is, as an artist, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And so for me nowadays, my mind state is more, I'm barely anyone's cup of tea. More that kind of mind state. Because the reality as well is that nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you anything. There's a lot of voices out there in 2020. Even in the space you're in, even if you're in a niche within a niche, there's a lot of voices even within that niche. The music business is highly, highly competitive, and you just might not be what the industry wants at the moment. But what I've learned from other people's success stories is you have to be willing, if you believe that you're called to it, to continue to push in that vein, even when it looks like it's not working. And that's because sometimes the market's just not right for you. Sometimes you're not right for the market. Sometimes as I said, you've got to grow into a grace. You've got to grow into who you are. You've got to grow into your identity. So learning yourself and being committed to a long-term journey allows you to mitigate some of that disappointment, because you're not focused on today's disappointment. And also, don't set ultimatums like, if in 2 years I don't finish music, if I don't get where I need to go, I'm quitting. Then just quit. It's just pointless to have those kind of ultimatums over you. Some of them drive people. I get that. I understand that. Some of them do drive people. But ultimately, I think it can just drive you to disappointment and despair and frustration and rejection and pain. Like, just go with the journey and let the journey be what the journey is, I think. Okay, we're gonna go to part 2.